Welcome, welcome. This party is just getting started. Thank you for joining Media Savvy with Red Thread Books and Forbes Journalist, Bianca Barratt. My name is Sierra Melker. I am the founder of Red Thread Publishing. You are all Red Thread authors, Red Thread friends, community members. We have among us our first male author from the Red Falcon imprint. Everybody say hi to David. We are growing and expanding. I'm so happy to see everybody here. Feel free in the chat just to say where you are on the planet, what brings you here, what you're hoping to learn. If you've already met Bianca and attended any of her previous sessions, you can just say like back for more. I'm going to do a couple of announcements. A quick refresher on media things that Bianca always teaches us, and then I'm going to hand over the mic to her. All right. Thrilled to see everybody here. This is our last workshop of 2023. I know the year is ending, but it feels amazing that we're already there. Every quarter, we've been doing cool workshops with Bianca and learning from her. In 2024, we're going to have a monthly workshop, either free, most of them are going to be free, bringing in experts, or we're digging into either writing, publishing, or impact. Media falls into impact, speaking, growing your business, becoming an entrepreneur, all of that stuff falls into impact. So I just want you to have in mind and keep your feelers up for all the different workshops that we're going to be offering our community and authors in the new year. Really, really excited about what we're building back here for you. Raise your hand real quick if you were at the summit earlier this year or you've attended anything with Bianca Barratt before. A couple folks. I've done it about 4 times, so I've got 4 hands up. Awesome. If you were there, then this will be familiar to you. If you were not there, hopefully we're repeating something, but I want you to like really take some quick notes because I'm going to hit the major 5, like what you should know after you have, even before you have a book, but like when you're trying to engage outside of your current audience, when you are reaching out to media, etc. So number 1, your book is content. Sarah, I see your book behind you. You do not need to books. You do not need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to either writing an article or pitching an article to a journalist. Your book is content. Erica's got it right. Your book is content. Every chapter in a nonfiction book, in theory, has its own theme or topic, specific audience and objective. So look at your book and don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel. Look at your book and say, like, if this chapter were a pitch, what's the headline? Who's the audience? What's the takeaway? What's the value add of this chapter? Okay. Look at your work from a new lens. When you're writing it as a book, we think of one thing, but now that you are beyond that or preparing to be beyond that, look at it from a different lens. And every book chapter is almost like an article already. It's short, it's concise. If it's written well, it has a clear stated focus from the beginning and takes the reader on some journey. Collaborative authors, especially, I see Frankie here, who has contributed to 2 collaborative author books. Her chapter is a standalone chapter in a collaborative book. It's like an article, right? So your book is content. Number 2, know your audience. Who are you writing to and who needs what you got? They don't just want you. And I'll circle back to this. What problem are you solving? What advice are you giving? David's audience is nonprofit leaders, right? Leaders in the nonprofit space. And cool. So that narrows it down. And then what's the problem? What are they always struggling with? Cool. How are you solving that problem? So really know your audience and know where they're hanging out. What do they read? If they're not reading the magazines you're pitching to, you're already missing something. Okay. So get in front of your audience, know your audience, and that then adds the next thing. Add value. I'm whispering it because it's really important. I should be shouting it, but add value. Add value to your audience, the reader of the article. Add value to the publication itself. A publication is like an organism. It needs to live. If your article doesn't get clicks, then that organism's not breathing. Okay. So add value. And then Bianca's going to like this, I think. Add value to the journalist who you are pitching, who is the connection between you and all of those readers. Be of assistance, be thoughtful, be kind, be human, and make their lives easier. Okay. The story is not you. How many people are disappointed by that? How many people are relieved by that? I'm like both. I'm like, I want to be the story, but I'm not the story, right? Add value. Okay. And the story is not you. For anyone who's taking notes, the story is not you. Okay. If someone comes to you and says, I love what you're doing, I'm so impressed with this, that, and the other, I'd love to do a feature on you, then they've come to you. Now you're the story. But it's still the job is to add value to the audience. And finally, I've sort of hinted at it before, build relationships with journalists. Journalists are people too. They are not just your cash cow, they are people. And when you know them, the same way that you want your readers to know you, your readers to find meaning and value in what you've put out, journalists are writers. And you actually have deep insight on what it's like to be a writer. What do you want to hear from your readers? Don't just, I equate the media pitching a lot with online dating. And you want to really know the people that you're pitching to. Because if it's a good fit for you, it's a good fit for them. You've done your research. You're not just swiping right on 100 people and hoping one of them likes you back. Okay. Bianca, how did I do? Did I get most of the core things?
Yes, you did. I think, and I always say if you take nothing else from learning about media and how to get it for yourself, the biggest thing is always the value point. And I think as well, the fact that you guys are already writers and you're authors, you spend a lot of time working out how to translate your experience or your expertise into digestible value for your audience, whether that is something that they're learning for business, like with David, or whether that's something that it's a sort of it's a life experience that they might be going through or have gone through or are looking to deepen their understanding of themselves or their inner world, whatever it might be. Value is always the lead thing here. So yeah, well done, Sierra.
Excellent. If any of those you're like, I need to know a little bit more, or I sort of get it, there's a bunch of places that you can get the deep dive on that. Summit replay from September. There were social media clips from that. So you can go back through our social media and look and watch Bianca's beautiful face tell you these things in detail. But Bianca also built a course specifically for Red Thread and authors, nonfiction authors, about how to do every single one of these. And she and I are both former teachers. So it's like a real course with real applicable, like, now do this. Before you watch the next lesson, go do that, right? Build your author assets or make a list of all the topics. And so it's super, super helpful. We can talk a little bit more about how to work with Bianca one-on-one if you need that coaching, or the course at the end. But definitely, we're here and we offer this to you all for free because we love you and we want you to be successful. And we want to present you the top tier of people doing things in the world, helping you all be successful. So that's where we're going to start. I want you to have that as just the basis. And then Bianca, what would you like to share with us today, my dear?
Thank you, Sierra. So I'm sure you've already spoken about this briefly, but for anyone who is completely new here, I am Bianca Barratt, as has been presented to you before you joined this class, this session. And I am a journalist. I am a senior contributor at Forbes. And I also write for other titles that you may have heard of, like Vogue, Sunday Times, Refinery 29, Cosmopolitan, BBC, what else? I've already said the Sunday Times, the Evening Standard, various different places. And through all the writing that I've done for those titles on business and culture and lifestyle, I have constantly been asked about like how you get into the media, how do you get your brand featured in a big title like that? And I think there's a lot of misconception that you have to have a PR company to do it. And actually, as somebody who sits on the other side of that coin, the person who sits and receives pitches and writes stories and is looking for experts like you guys, I can tell you categorically that it's definitely not the case that you have to have a PR company to get yourselves into the media. You definitely don't. And that's why Sierra and I have bonded so much on this topic, both as writers, but also in terms of, you know, thinking about how you can get your book out to a wider audience, because you've spent so much time and energy creating it. I know I'm writing a book and I say hats off to you guys, because I know that it's really a huge level of commitment and so much effort and energy goes into doing it. So if you've gone to all that effort and then you don't take the next step to actually get it out there to a bigger audience, to promote it in a way that will bring you more readers or will bring you more people who see that you've authored a book and say, okay, I can see that they're clearly an expert and they're trustworthy in their field. Now I want to work with them in another way. Then you've made all that effort of the book and you're not reaping the benefits of having made that effort. So that's a key thing that media can help you to do with the work that you've already done. Now, I don't want to spend this whole session just talking at you, because I think I can give you so much value where if I know more about where you are at. So I think the first thing I would like to start with here, before we go any further, is when you think about reaching out to the media or creating some kind of PR strategy around your book, I want you to be really, really honest and tell me, how does that make you feel when you think about having to do that? And what is the biggest thing that is standing in your way from actually taking that action and getting yourself as an author or your book into the media? So please, like, take a moment to think about it and share with me in the chat. And Sierra, I would love to, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but for you to kind of kick things off, when you started on your media journey, like what were your thoughts around that?
The feelings that I had before are not different than the feelings I have now. They're just not the end of the story. I still have the same feelings, but now I can behave differently. So the feelings are terrified and overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And it used to definitely be like, I have no idea how to go from here to there. Now I have every idea of how to go from here to there. It's still nerve-wracking, the same way that everybody who has a book that they're about to put out, you've poured all your heart and soul into it. I have authors who come to me like the night before publishing and say, never mind, actually, could we just not put this out there? Right? I've done all this work.
Fear of visibility.
And that's a real thing. So I actually wanted to expand this and to sort of define a couple of different ways that you can get into the media. Mm-hmm. That there does not have to be a full article written by you or about you. You call those features? Or like, if you're just quoted as an expert in relation to something else, is that labeled a feature? I want to name.
So I think the best way to think about it is yeah, as you said, Sierra, there are different ways that you can be in the media. So one is that you can write the article yourself. So you might be a guest contributor, maybe sharing a full article that you've written to an opinion section at a newspaper, for example, or you might be a guest writer on a blog or a media site, whatever it might be. Most sort of standard media companies, so when you think of media and you think of, I don't know, New York Times, or you think of a magazine that you know and really like, most of them will have writers who either write for them in-house or they are already contributing, but they are journalists or writers by trade. And in those kind of places, you will typically either be the subject of a full article, so where the whole piece is centered around your expertise or an element of your experience or story that is then translated into something that the audience can take away. Or the other kind of way is that the journalist is already writing a particular kind of piece and they're looking for an expert that can supplement and ground that piece in more sort of factual information, or give it more context, or just give it more legitimacy. And in that case, you wouldn't necessarily be the entire focus of the piece, but you would be there as the expert that kind of complements what's being said already. So those are kind of main different ways. I don't really know if there are particular labels I can give beyond that, but that's kind of the best way to categorize them.
I think having those three, guest contributor, the subject of the article, or a quoted expert, I think just even having that in our minds gives everybody here some options. Do I want to be writing the article? Do I want to be the subject of the article, or do I want my book or my work to be the subject? Or do I want to focus on, because one of our authors actually replied to this event and she's going to watch the replay, and she said, I'm actually only going to be the quoted expert. That is all I want. And that's her angle. She's like, I want to be the go-to quoted expert in all journalistic pieces about corporate and educational burnout. Boom. And she knows it, and that focuses her strategy. And I think that's going to really help her. Let's check in with what folks are saying.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on in the chat here. I think maybe the best thing to do here is if I can pick out a couple of people and you can share with me what you're thinking, and we can hash this out in a conversation so everybody can hear and everybody can take the value from it. Because I think what I'm seeing here is that there are so many of the, lots of people have the same, not necessarily fears, but reservations about media, or parts that feel confusing or cloudy or closed off, as if, oh, how do you even find that out? How would you even know where to begin to find that stuff out? So I think let's go through some of these so you can actually hear from me what that looks like and how you can go away and take that action. And then hopefully that's going to leave you feeling more empowered that this is something that you can actually do, because it is something that you can do. And it's not a secret, closed off world that only PR companies that are charging thousands a month can give you access to. You can absolutely do this yourself. So let's start with David. Hi, David. So tell me what you're thinking about this, finding these journalists.
Right. So I was successful at getting a lot of PR about a nonprofit organization I started. This was now 15 years ago, and it was in sports, and I kind of understood that space a little bit. And so it was just to your point, it was all about reaching out to journalists with a very specific ask about, is this something that's interesting to you? How would something like this fit into the kind of things that you write about, et cetera, et cetera? Fine. I'm not really sure what the universe is of nonprofit journalists, and short of going sort of publication by publication and calling in and asking their assignment editor or something like that, like who would I even talk to? I'm just not sure how to compile a list and then therefore know who I would reach out to, know what their contact information is, et cetera. So is there a shortcut or a best practice to sort of just compiling the list of contacts I might want to engage?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a couple of others of you had questions about finding contacts here as well. If that was you, just give me a wave or give me like a virtual hand if you're not on camera and you can. Yeah, okay, great. Your name's coming up as Intuitive Butterfly. Not sure what your name is, but Intuitive Butterfly, I see you raising your hand and I acknowledge that, and Gloria, same to you. So David, back to you, and I hope for you guys this is going to answer your questions as well. So yeah, you are right that now the media model has changed a bit in that a lot of journalists don't take calls anymore. Some of them do on news desks, but sort of getting on the phone with them is not that common. So it is often about finding those email addresses, and there are several ways that you can do this. So the first way you can do, and we teach you about how to do this in more depth inside the course, but one of the first things that you can do is you simply start looking at who is writing those articles, where are those kind of articles that you think that is something that would really fit with what I would have to say, or that's the kind of theme that my expertise would fall under. Which titles are writing that kind of stuff in the first place? And then within that, which journalists are writing those pieces? Are there journalists that are writing on this topic more often than just once? And if so, what are their names? That's the best place to start. When you have those names, usually when you click on their, so let's say you see an article that comes up and you see the journalist's byline at the top of the piece. So you will usually on any article be able to see who has written that piece. Because if you're looking online, which is the beauty of, nowadays, yes, people aren't on the phone as much, but we have so much more access to information because of, being on the internet. So if you click on their name, you will usually be taken to their author page, which is the page on the website which shows you every piece that they have written for that media title. And often there will be a short bio and a picture at the top, which will tell you who they are and what they like to write about. And if you're really lucky, there will be links there to their social media pages and to their email address. So if you're able to get that information, you've got their email addresses already. If they don't have those available there, my next best piece of advice would be go to Twitter/X. I don't really use it as like a place to hang out on social media anymore because it can be a bit of a dumpster fire, but it is still a really good place to find journalists, because journalists use that platform on a regular basis to share their work, to talk about the news, and also to find sources for their pieces. So if you look up their name in the search function on Twitter and they come up there, often you will find that they have put out requests that are on there before saying, like, looking for an expert who can talk to me about XYZ. I need it for a piece that I'm writing today or something. And they will share their email address in one of those tweets. So this all might just sound, oh, this seems really obvious, or, if it were this easy, everyone would be doing it. But I can tell you now, I have compiled a list of hundreds of journalists purely following these techniques. So journalists that I haven't known the email addresses of previously, I have been able to compile lists of people purely by doing this kind of research. And I know there, David, that you've mentioned, I can sort of sense you have this fear of how much time that this could take. But I can tell you, you will have better results sourcing maybe 10 to 20 really aligned journalists and taking the time to find out who they are, what they write about, building a bit of a relationship by getting on their radar on social media, for example, and then pitching to them, then you would be spending hours finding hundreds and hundreds of journalists to reach out to and compiling a huge list of people to contact. So I think what often puts people off is they think it's got to be quantity. Quantity is the way you get the results. And I think this is often because we get into our marketing mindset and we think about, oh, well, when you're marketing, conversion rates are usually, 2 to 3% or something. Okay, so that means I've got to have, for every 100 leads I've got coming, on my email list or this, that, and the other, probably only between sort of 3 and 7 of them are going to buy. Okay, so that means I need hundreds and hundreds of leads to hit my target. Media isn't like that. Media is a place that you can actually let your marketing persona go a little bit and let your expert persona, the one that you actually love being, come out a little bit more. And it's a place where you can focus more on quality over quantity. So you're much better off going for a small group of journalists and doing your due diligence, doing that research on them, and then reaching out to them when you think you can really create a pitch that's well aligned. Then you are coming up with a list of hundreds of people. Now, a couple of other quick ways, I'll mention quickly, other ways that you can find journalists. There are databases that you can pay for. Some of them, I think, cost a lot of money for what they are. There's one called Diary Directory, and if you're a business, that costs hundreds of pounds or dollars a month. But there are also services where you can find journalists who are putting out requests for experts to contribute to the pieces, like I said to you about being an expert that's quoted. And if you look up journalist request service online, you will find plenty of options there that you can sign up to, and you can set your preferences for the kinds of requests you want to receive. Obviously, depending on the level of the service and how sophisticated it is, that will depend on how narrow you can go with your preferences. But even on those, that's a fantastic way. Even if some of the requests coming in are not things that you think you would like to contribute to or that aren't a good fit, it's a brilliant way for finding out more about who those journalists are and what kind of stuff they're looking for, so you can go away and then find those email addresses.
Bianca, can I sprinkle in here?
Yes.
Okay. This is a best practice that I used to absolutely not follow, and I still maybe am like a C student on this. But if you read articles about your topic, find out who's writing the stuff that you're reading.
Yeah.
And just actively be a fan of those people. Write to them and say, gosh, that article was so helpful. You will make a journalist's day. The same way, if you got an email that says, I just read your book and it changed my life, or even like it was helpful, that would be amazing. Most people don't do that. We think of, especially like famous people, as bombarded with but they're not. Go say thank you. I loved that article. I shared it with my community. Or just repost an article and tag the journalist. One of the things I've learned from Bianca is you want to be a recognized name. They're going to reply to you if they're like, that sounds really familiar. I don't even remember how I know that person, but that name sounds familiar. Okay. And so if you make yourself known to them before you even ask for something, then this is what I mean by building a relationship with them. You say thank you first before you say give me, right? And even the give me is, I actually think I have something that might be helpful for you in your next article. Okay. David, I heard you ask, your question was even framed, I'm going to ask them what they want. But what Bianca just explained, you already know what they want. You know what they write about. You know the kinds of topics that they're talking about. And if you write to somebody and say, I read X article by you and you talked about this, I think this topic is a great follow-up or an extension. It means you know who they are, you know what they write about. And people could come to Bianca and just say, you write for Forbes. And they're like foaming at the mouth. And they're like, you should write an article about me. But she only writes about lifestyle stuff and like women entrepreneurs. Am I right, Bianca?
Yeah. So on Forbes,
right?
I write about women in business and then issues surrounding women at work. Yeah.
And so nobody should pitch her something that's not what she writes about for that publication, right? That's just an automatic no. It's like
Yeah.
if your online dating profile says like, I'm a vegan, and somebody says, hey, let's go out for steak. You're just like, no, I know that you didn't take 10 seconds to get to know me. So
yeah, exactly. So I think another thing I'm seeing a lot of here in the chat is this thing of, I don't know who my audience is or where they are. So my first question to you, so a couple of you said that to me. Can you give me a wave if that was you? Just so I don't have to scroll all the way through the chat. Yes, we've got Chris said that. Yeah, Chris, do you want to expand on that a little bit more?
So, excuse me. So my book that I published with Red Thread is a memoir, and it's I would say the big themes are around home and family and belonging, and a lot of it is set in at least the early parts of it in the southern U.S. And that's not where I live now, so sometimes that feels a little challenging. So, I know that my book is appealing to, I would say, women, probably middle-aged and older, people who are maybe looking for some comfort and ease in the world, maybe people who are a little bit nostalgic for, quote unquote, better times. But then when I start thinking about, okay, well, then where do I find those people? I draw a blank in terms of where to start looking.
Yeah. So my first question to you would be, what do you read?
Well, I read just about everything, actually. I mean, I read nonfiction, fiction, memoir.
And then when you're reading, do you read any media?
I do. I read the New York Times. I read my local paper. I'm not a huge, I mean, I do some social media, but I don't love it. And I don't have and that's been a big push-pull for me in terms of engaging, not engaging in that.
Yeah.
But I would say mostly I just I listen to podcasts,
Yeah.
some podcasts. But I guess I don't engage in a ton of media. I do some.
Okay, so I think often when we're thinking about our audiences, especially if like with you've written a memoir, which is very there are obviously elements of it that are very introspective, and that can sometimes feel like a bit of an echo chamber, in that we then worry, well, you think you're not on social media that much, you read and consume only small amounts of media outside of books. It makes you worry that other people who you're looking to reach will be the same. I don't actually think that's necessarily true. I think when you're thinking about where to find your audience, a huge part of that is sitting down and thinking about, well, what is the main message of what I am trying to share here? So for you, Chris, what would you say is the sort of, why would somebody read your book if they don't know you and they're not just looking to get a lovely story about your life right, and they don't know you? Why are they choosing your book? What is in it for them?
What's in it for them is a place of comfort and ease, where somebody told me recently the tagline for my book should be "Nothing bad happens." So it's like it's a warm, comforting place about unconditional love and about family and belonging.
Okay, great. So there are two options you have here. you either think about what media do people turn to when they are looking for comfort. So where is media shared that's more heart-centered? So obviously one that springs to mind for me is something like Oprah Daily. What are the media titles where people are going there to reflect on themselves or think about things that bring them joy or sort of cultivate that feeling? Where is that media that they're going to? And a great place to start, obviously, again, is start researching what you talk about and see who's writing about that stuff. And then the other option is to go to places where so if these women are in their sort of 40s, 50s, maybe a lot of them are still working. And if they're working, what kind of titles are they reading when they're thinking with their kind of career hat on? But how might you be able to interrupt that kind of pattern for them? And in that place that can sometimes feel a bit stressful to them or devoid of joy, be something that shows up as the antidote to that. I realize I'm talking in a little bit, it feels a bit metaphorical here, but I think basically it's thinking, what are you offering to your audience that is the thing that they are going to choose to read your book? What is it, the thing that you're saying they're going to be able to take away that's valuable for them?
Right.
And then where can you go and find where they're already seeking that kind of value out elsewhere in the media? And then where can you go where it's a little bit devoid of that type of value, but that's where they are also going to be because of the phase of life they're in, the kind of person they are, the preferences they have, what sort of demographic they're in, and how can you show up there and give them some element of value that feels like a breath of fresh air to them? So it kind of opens up a whole lot of different places that you can reach out to.
Thank you. That's really cool.
Yeah. How does that feel?
That feels good. It like you said, it feels like it opens up my thinking around where to start looking.
Yeah. And I think obviously, like, if we had a session together, it would be a lot easier to dive into a lot more detail.
Sure.
It's hard to go into the level of detail that we would like to just on a single call with a group. But I think for anyone who's worried about, well, how do I find my audience? It is thinking about what are they reading when they're already in the mode, or what are they consuming when they're already thinking about the thing that you do? And what would you say to them in that space? And then where are they also when they're not thinking about what you do, but that's the places that they go for other types of media, basically. Sierra, do you have anything to add on this?
Well, Chris, I would just direct you to the chat. There's a number of things that have been mentioned in the chat, suggestions. Make a list of every one of those media sources and then go date that source. Go look, take 15 minutes and see what's there and say, like, would something fit here or not? And then, oh, here's an article I love this, or I like the way that they write, or I like who this person is. And then you found not only a media source, but a journalist. If it doesn't feel like a great fit, cross it off the list and move on.
Right.
I think that same research of like, what would you read is going to be really helpful, but you have to then, if you're not an active sort of article magazine reader, like I'm not quite, dabble your toes in there, because that's the space that you need to get into. So
great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So I also see a lot about what do you say to these journalists, and how, what is that journey? And I know that there's a lot of people in here who may not have seen some of the other workshops that we've done yet. I would definitely suggest you go back and watch them. We don't want to completely repeat those here because there are people who've been in them before, but please go back and watch them, because in there you will find a definitive 5-step process that is very easy to follow and easy to apply, that can take you from, I have no idea where to even start with media, to, okay, I have something that I can put together in a pitch. But I think what would be useful here, because a lot of people are asking about pitching, is to dive a little bit more into the pitch itself. Sierra, do you think that's a good idea?
Absolutely. And you really laid out sort of like the 5 things that make a great pitch. If we can do, again, just sort of a quick refresher on, because even Neetu's asking, aside from like fangirling on a journalist, which I still think is probably the best first step, what do you then say when you want to, again, to use the dating metaphor, you swipe right on someone, cool. How do you then ask them out? Like, how do you take it to the next level? I like you, cool. And then what's the headline? What needs to be in that first message? How and when do you follow up? I think those will be really helpful for folks.
Okay, we can dive into this. But before we do, just on the point of getting on the radar of the journalist or fangirling on the journalist, what I would say here is, do not just send them a message that says, love your piece, or this is great, or just like it and hope that they then just find you and think, oh, somebody liked my piece that they've shared, say, on social media. If you want to really get on their radar in a way that makes them pay attention to you in a good way, you need to reflect back to them the whole point of why they do what they do. And why they do what they do is they tell stories that will be valuable to their audience. That is their number one goal, always. If they're, as Sierra said earlier, if their audience doesn't find that story valuable or their stories valuable, they're going to go somewhere else to find the stories that they're looking for. So if you're in their audience and they share a piece or a podcast or whatever it might be, it doesn't always have to be a journalist writing an article. It could be a podcast or something. When they share it, listen to it, read it, watch it, whatever it is, consume it, and then tell them not just that you liked it, but what it was that you found valuable about it. So quite often I'll share my Forbes pieces and I receive messages saying, oh, great piece, love this. And that's lovely to hear. But the things that make me pay attention the most is when someone says, oh, I found this piece so fascinating, particularly what you said about ABC, or wow, you really got me thinking about 1, 2, 3, because I'd never thought about it in that way before. And I'm really interested what you had to say about blah, blah, blah. It's sharing with them what it was that you found valuable about it, not just that you found it valuable. Because when you do that, you're making their day, because you are doing exactly what they're trying to do in the first place, which is create stories that their audience finds valuable. And I can guarantee if you do that, you will stand out, because so few people do it, that you are going to put yourself in the top 1% of their audience, even just by doing that. I will happily hang my hat on that and say I can guarantee that, because so few people do it. So before we move on to the pitch, I just want that to be clear, that it's thinking about showing them what it is that you found valuable. And that stops it feeling like, it stops it feeling icky when you do that as well. It stops it feeling like you're just being like, oh, I love what you do. Oh, I love it. Because journalists, they're not looking for that kind of validation. I think sometimes people think that they're wanting people to just say how fantastic they are. And actually, journalists just want to know that they did some good work and that it helped people in some way.
And I think to do that, it requires that you actually have read it and that you let the journalist know that you actually read it. It's really easy to be like, great job.
Yeah.
Okay. I can write that for everybody.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And it's the amount of energy I put into that comment is going to be reciprocated, and it's going to be a flat line. But if I put a little bit of energy in, then it's reciprocated back.
Yeah. So as we said, we go into this in more detail in the previous workshop, but this isn't even step 1 for you. This is when, say, like with David, you've already started curating that list of journalists that are in alignment with what you are looking to pitch. And the best thing about this is that it kills two birds with one stone, in that when you start interacting with them in a meaningful way and you consume the work that they're putting out there, you are feeding your own intel bank of what they're looking for, how they write, how they work with experts or sources, all that stuff. It's not just so, for the journalist, so you can say, oh, I found this valuable, because it's for you too, because it means the more you do that, the more you're going to understand how to pitch them something they can't say no to. So it helps to feed the information that you are going to want before you send them a pitch anyway. So I think it's important that we get onto this pitch piece. And I think this will help you a lot, because I say there are a few definitive questions that a journalist wants answered in a pitch. And I say journalist, but you could interchange this for podcast host, talk panel host, whatever it might be. Anyone that's putting out some kind of media that involves a sort of storytelling and value add aspect, this will work for them. So obviously the first question that you need to be able to answer is, what is it that you are pitching to them? What is the story? And I would always recommend you go inch wide, mile deep, as opposed to mile wide, inch deep. And I know that particularly as you've written books and perhaps are quite new to the media game, I think a lot of the overwhelm comes from thinking, oh my God, how am I gonna get everything that I've done and all my experience and encapsulate everything in the book into one pitch? Well, congratulations, you don't have to, and you definitely shouldn't. You're much better off perhaps picking one strand of something you talk about. And I'm sure, as authors, every chapter has to have its own arc, has to have its own completed, contained point, but it all feeds into the overall arc of what you're talking about in the book. Think about a pitch as just one of those chapters. This is where you are going. A chapter is like that, right? The book is the mile wide bit, but a chapter is inch wide. And it's where you get to go far deeper into a particular strand of the thing that you're talking about. Pitching is exactly the same. Choose something. And again, we talk about this in a lot of detail inside the course, like how you pick what to talk about. But choose something where you're talking about one aspect of something that you do, or that you write about, or that you are an expert in, that you can dive into in a lot of detail. So an example of this might be for Forbes. If I was speaking to a business owner and she had owned a business for 25 years and she had bought and sold 3 different businesses, launched them from scratch, I'm never going to be able to write an article that encapsulates everything she's done in one piece. And if I tried, it's going to come across flat because there's no depth to it. And there's nothing there that the audience is going to go, oh, I can go away and I can action that in some way, or that's bettered me in some way by learning about that or reading about that. So I would choose one particular aspect of something that she is really good at, or she is exemplified through this bigger journey. So perhaps it's something about launching, or perhaps it's something about how your business how your business is changing as you get older, or how getting older changes how you feel about running a business. Whatever it might be, I would choose one particular aspect of her story and focus on that, and make sure I did it in a lens that meant the audience could go away and think, oh, this has helped me or improved me or added value to my life in some way. So that first question you want to answer is, what is the story? And there you go. The story is small, but deep. So you've got to think about it as something you can go into a lot of depth on, but that doesn't require you to hop across multiple different topics or try to encapsulate your whole experience into one pitch. So the next question then is, what value is that going to add to the audience? And this is where you reflect to the journalist that you know who their audience is. Now, most people, when they pitch, do not acknowledge the audience at all. And actually, the audience is the most important aspect for in any media company. The audience are the people who are making the judgment, who are giving their attention to these stories. So you want to be making it clear, well, what is the audience going to get out of this if they consume this? The next question you need to answer is, why are you pitching that particular person or that particular podcast? Why them and not the title? So if you're talking about, say, Forbes, not why you're pitching Forbes. Forbes has loads of different writers. Why are you pitching that particular person? Why are they the journalist that is going to be who's someone you think this is going to be up their street? Why are you pitching to them? Then you want to be able to answer, why does this matter now? What's going on contextually that means you can drop what you're doing into that context and it makes sense in some way? So you don't, if what you write about feels very evergreen, as we call it, like it matters all the time, it's something that is an age-old problem, or it's something that we will always care about, that's amazing. But is there something going on in the world, or is there new research? Is there new data? Is there an interesting sort of change in mindset or behavior? Or is there a trend? Is there something that you can anchor your pitch to that sort of explains, well, this is why we need to talk about this at the moment? And then you need to answer, why are you the expert to speak about this? And this bit should be really, really easy for you guys because you have books to back up your expertise. Journalists really love it when you can back up your expertise with some sort of qualifying factor. And a book is a fantastic way to do that. So why are you the expert to talk about this? If you can answer those questions and do it succinctly, you are going to be one of the best pitches that journalist has received that day, that week, probably that year. And I'll tell you this as someone who receives probably 100 pitches a day. Most of them do not answer all of those questions. They don't tell me not just what the story is, but why it's valuable, why my audience would like it, why they're pitching to me specifically, why this matters at the moment, and why they're the expert to be speaking about this. And that's really all I want to know. At the first stage, that's all I want to know from you. And if you can capture my attention in that way, all the extra detail, that comes after. You don't need to tell me everything up front. I just want to know those key factors so I can make a quick judgment. Okay, this could be a really interesting thing to write about. Let me go back to them and get more. Because if you just think about it that way, this is a chance for you to capture the journalist's attention and interest. Then it stops feeling like you've got to know how to give everything up front when you've not engaged in a proper conversation with them yet, because then that feels like mind reading, which is what makes it feel really, really overwhelming. And nobody's expecting you to mind read. But if you have done that little bit of research on thinking about who is a good fit, and you've engaged with them in some way, and then you send them a pitch that answers these questions, you are going to be in that top tier level of pitches that they receive. And if you've got it on their radar already and engaged with them on something they've written before and told them why you found it valuable, you're also going to be a name they're expecting to see in their inbox, or at the very least, a name that they recognize. And we all know that when we open our inboxes, the first emails we look for are the ones we're expecting. And then the second are from names that we recognize. And then if we have time, we look at all the rest. So if you can put yourself in the top two categories and you can send them a pitch that answers all those questions, you are going to be putting yourself on a really, really good footing to get those features that you're looking for. So now that I've shared all that, Sierra, is there anything you want to sort of say here at this point?
So we're already at the top of the hour. Bianca, you have a couple more minutes for anybody else who can stay on? Okay. I just want to reiterate that if you know your audience and you know some journalists, and when you reach out to a journalist that you've already low-key established a connection with, and you can answer those 5 things. We started this with, I don't know who to reach out to. I don't know who my audience is. I don't know how to approach them. Now you're beginning to understand how to figure out who your audience is, where to find the right people to reach out to, how to make initial contact, and then how to pitch. It's not just as simple as Bianca said, because I know she's shared earlier that she'll spend 30 minutes just figuring out what the subject line of her email should be when she's pitching. But if you take the time to craft these things well, like with anything that you do over and over again, you will get better. This requires energy. This is not like I can do this in 30 minutes and be done. But as this year's wrapping up, next year's starting, if you say, I want to be quoted as an expert 4 times in 2024, then to do that, you will need to be reaching out to people and reaching out in an informed way. This stuff works. I have a relationship with Bianca because I did this. This is how she and I met. Okay. This is how she and I met. And it legit works. I want to hear from everybody. What's the favorite thing you learned? How are you feeling now compared to how you felt when you got on? And if there's any other last burning questions, or like, I don't know how this applies to me. How do I get through this mental hurdle? I don't know that we have time for another full sort of like coaching session, but I just want to hear where folks are now.
Sierra, just a reaction to that, and thank you and Bianca for your time today. My experience sort of like in sales generally is we don't really sell people anything. What we do is we help solve a problem for them. And what Bianca and you have both indicated is, if I'm a writer or a podcaster, my problem is I need things to produce. I need content. And so, instead of being worried about how to do this, I think we should try to feel good about the fact that we're bringing something to somebody. And hopefully if we've curated a reasonable list, we're bringing something to them of value. What the hit rate will be, who knows, frankly, but I don't think we need to be as worried or apprehensive about this. We're really helping them do their job. We're helping them do something. They're going to appreciate us. And that's been my experience in this when it works. It doesn't always work. You swing and miss, but you don't have to swing and miss all that often. You can kind of get it right a fairly high percentage of the time if you kind of are thinking at it from their perspective, not just from your own perspective. So I just want to toss that out there.
I love that. Thank you, David. And I totally agree. I think when you focus on the value you can offer, it takes the pressure off you having to appear all singing and all dancing, which I think is the pressure lots of people feel about getting into the media. They think they've got to be the best of something or appear as the most interesting person, when actually journalists just want to know how you can help their audience in some way, or how you can reach and connect with their audience in some way. And I think when you put the focus on that, it definitely takes the pressure off. And like you said, David, I think, when you do that and you answer the questions that they're looking for, you will definitely get more hits than misses, for sure.
I think one of the common things is people learn this information and then don't act on it.
Yeah.
So if anyone here wants to say out loud when they will take meaningful action, whatever it is. I'm going to find, I'm going to make a list of 5 publications. I'm going to reach out to one journalist. I'm going to pitch an article before February 15th, 2024. Say in the chat something that you are committing to, and we will all be watching to celebrate you because you did the thing you said you would do. I'm also one of these people that if I don't say that I'm going to do it, it's going to be a whole nother year. And I'm like, yeah, I meant to do that and I didn't. But accountability works. A couple of things I want to mention to you. So we've already hinted the full course that's available through Red Thread. I'm going to drop that link if you want to really commit to this and support yourself through the process. Everything I know about media I learned from doing this course with Bianca. She made it specifically for us. If you want, she has hinted at this like one-on-one coaching. If you really want her to walk you through and who's your audience, what are your headlines, what are the topics that you talk about, where you should go, how do you craft the pitch, and yada, yada, that's available too. She also, do you want to talk about the scoop a little bit? Because I think the scoop might even be like another more, I love
yeah, for sure. So
nudging.
so you'll see that the one-to-ones come under the scoop, and the scoop is what I do when I'm not being a journalist. And the scoop is basically a hub where there are courses, resources, journalist database, David, what you were speaking about, Q&As with journalists on a monthly basis, support calls, etc. Basically a one-stop shop where you can learn how to craft your messaging in a way that people like and craft it in a way that the media likes, and then how you can do your own media outreach in a way that doesn't have to take over your entire life and your entire day and become your entire new personality, which nobody has time for, let's be honest. Also, how you find quick opportunities, and then how you turn that media into sales. So how you turn that media into, whether that's selling your book, selling the expertise that your book kind of exemplifies, whatever it might be. So the scoop is a more generalized place with a lot more, there's lots of different courses and, like I said, different aspects and resources, etc., inside the scoop that you can join. The course in Red Thread is very author focused. It's specifically for you guys to learn how to get media as an author and how you use the work you've already done in the book and turn that into pitches that journalists will like. And then one-to-ones is where, if you're looking for that very specific targeted support that is just for you, to talk about, okay, this is what you've written about. How do we turn this specific thing into something the media wants? Here's an action plan for you. That's what you'll find with one-to-ones. So, I think this is a good time of year to be thinking about this. I know we've got Christmas coming up, and it's a good time of year to start to sort of take action and engage with something like this, even if you don't intend to start doing the work until January. But it's a great time to think about this so that when January comes around, you have that knowledge in place so that you can then start taking action straight away. And there are so many ways that you can find media opportunities that don't take a lot of time for you to for you to sort of be putting in as a potential person to be featured. So if any of those appeal to you, Sierra has all the info on all of those. I haven't put the link in specifically for the scoop here, but if that's something you're interested in, let Sierra know and I will share that with you as well. But these are just places where you can learn to do this stuff for yourself so that you don't have to hire PRs to do it for you. And it's all been specifically designed for people who are not in the media industry, are busy doing other stuff, but are experts in their fields and want to be able to get that recognition in the media and all the opportunity that comes with that.
And I've talked to PR companies and people who do PR work as part of my like building strategic partnerships for Red Thread and Red Thread authors. And when somebody quotes me like $2,000 to $5,000 a month retainer for like maybe one spot a month, I'm like, I don't know who you work with, but that's awesome for you. That's crazy pants. And so if you can spend an hour a week, which feels like a lot, but an hour a week to begin to build relationships, do this research, build the momentum, you'll be saving $500 every week, but also I think it will add up. And that small incremental stuff is where transformation really happens. It's where the relationships get built. It feels overwhelming when like I don't know, and it feels really big and I've never done it before. And that's why we talk about breaking it down. And I love everybody's, this is what I'm going to do. This is my actionable step. I would love to cheerlead for you. So if you do one of the things you said you were going to do, any of them, anything that you've heard about here, message me back so I can celebrate you, so I can make you feel like you did a big thing. Even if it's really small, it is the small thing that gets the ball rolling. And I just want to really, I want to see you all in the media. I want to see you all showing up for your message, for your audience, because again, like so many people have said here, we're not selling something, we're offering something. So make sure to go offer your stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
I adore you all and this audience and this community that we've built. I cannot wait to feel and reconnect with you all in the new year. Like, what progress have you made? What's your 90-day marketing plan for your book and for your message? How have you taken this information, integrated it, and start applying it? And then we'll be touching base periodically again, because you need a refresher or you need a reminder or you need a cheerleading, because that's how it all works. Bianca, I adore you. I adore the relationship that we've built for this community. And I just want to publicly, not just in email, etc., say again, thank you for building this strategic alliance for us and sharing your expertise and your knowledge with all of our authors. I'm just so grateful, truly.
It's my absolute pleasure. And honestly, I think particularly as authors, you have so much to share in the media and you already have so many of the skills that are required to reach out successfully to the media in the first place. So this is why I love coming into Red Thread, because you guys are already so much further along this process than you think you are, and actually a lot further along the process than so many other people. So don't forget that. You have the expertise, you have the books to back up the expertise, and you have the skills to write well. So you are already way ahead of a lot of people, and don't let yourselves be talked out of that, because I think when you remember that, it feels much more doable to get this media coverage, which you are all absolutely capable of doing.
Yay. Can I have just a quick smiley everybody screenshot? Because it's just great to have a beautiful community in here. You are about to have your picture taken, whether you're on camera or not. Look at all those beautiful faces. Oh my God, everybody has a face. Oh my gosh, I love faces. Yay. Oh my gosh. And Erica too. Oh my God. Everybody say hi. Beautiful faces from around the world. Gorgeous. So grateful. Thank you all so much. But I mean it. Message me if you have questions about this. If you were on this or registered, you get the replay so you can listen to it again. Message when you've done any of these things. We will celebrate you. And look at all the people who are here, who are in your corner, got your back, want to celebrate you. I'm just wishing everybody restful holidays. Don't implement all of this right now. Say when you're going to and then do it, but celebrate what you've accomplished so far and set your sights for where you're going. Love to all of you. Thank you so much. Ciao.
Bye, everyone.